So today we're talking about how you can turn your business into a real asset instead of something that traps you and keeps you in a cage.
My great grandfather was a farmer. My grandfather was blue collar his entire career. My father still is blue collar to this day.
What patterns started to jump out to you? Like who needs help? Who doesn't need help?
It's sucking your time. It's sucking your energy. It's sucking your health, your relationships, all these things. It's just taking away from those things. And business shouldn't be that way.
Welcome to the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast. In each episode, we're going to bring you insightful interviews and discussions with top restoration industry leaders. We're also going to delve into their business, the strategies that made them successful, and most importantly, the valuable lessons they've learned along the way. I'm your host, Clinton James. I'm also the Chief Marketing Officer at Water Restoration Marketing. We're a digital marketing agency dedicated to helping restoration companies nationwide secure more high-value water jobs. Now, this show, it aims to provide you with the knowledge and tools you need to excel in the restoration industry. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
And welcome everybody to another episode of the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast. As always, I'm your host, Clinton James, Chief Marketing Officer over at Water Restoration Marketing. I've got a special show for you guys today. I know one of the biggest challenges that restoration owners face, it's not finding work, right? It's actually building a company that doesn't completely depend on them. So today we're talking about how you can turn your business into a real asset instead of something that traps you and keeps you in a cage. I want to introduce today's guest. He came highly recommended to me. I do a mastermind a couple times a year with some of our agency clients, and one of the restoration companies that participated this time told me about a coach and consultant that he was working with and the impact that he was having in his business. So I got on the line, asked him to jump on the podcast to share some of that gold with our audience. So Toby Clem from Restoration Advisors. Now, Toby works alongside restoration companies, helping owners build systems, leadership teams, and operational structure so that you can actually scale your company without burning out. So, Toby, thank you for joining us on the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast.
Man, I am so honored to be here. You say some kind words, but at the end of the day, man, I'm just fulfilling my life purpose. So I'm super grateful to be here, and I can't wait for the conversation.
Those are not my words, man. Those are shout out to Tom Payton for introducing us. So, Toby, for the audience that doesn't know you, tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to working with restoration companies specifically.
Yeah, so I come from a blue collar background. My great grandfather was a farmer. My grandfather was blue collar his entire career. My father still is blue collar to this day. And one of the things that I found in observing my grandfather, my father, and then me starting out in the trades as well is work just becomes life. And there's no downtime. It just consumes not only the workers, but also the owners. And as I started out in my journey, I did trades, I went corporate, then I started my own company. I've gotten out of my own company, and now I'm coaching owners with the information that I've gleaned throughout my career. And at the end of the day, what it comes down to is I want business owners to contribute positively above and beyond monetary to their communities, but more importantly to their families. And it's really, I see it a lot. It's really challenging for them to do so. So anyway, we've put together some systems that work really well. Shout out to Tom. He and his partner have done phenomenal things. And I know he speaks highly of me. I really appreciate it, but I have to say, man, they put in the work. I was simply the guide here. I simply asked the questions, and I don't want to downplay, right? But at the same time, they put in the work. And at the end of the day, that's what it takes. It takes guys doing hard work, but just doing the right hard work is the key.
Well, Tom is obviously not your only client, but he is
No,
a
correct.
client of ours. We share that. Great guy, great team over at TRG. Now, in the work that you've done with restoration companies, when you first meet the owner and the leadership team, if they've got one, what patterns started to jump out to you? Like who needs help? Who doesn't need help?
Yeah, the pattern I would say that we can help with the most, or one of the things that we help with the most, is we call it the owner encyclopedia, right? The owner's making every decision and the entire team coming to the owner for every decision. I'll never forget one of the first clients that I helped Clark with when I joined Restoration Advisors. We went to do an on-site with this particular customer, and if he's listening, he knows exactly who he is because we joke about it all the time. He could hardly sit down for 5 minutes without having to jump out and take a phone call or respond to a text. I'd be mid sentence and he'd be hammering out a text on his phone because it was urgent, because he was the only guy that could make a decision. So when asked what the biggest thing is, I would say that's the biggest thing is they're just consumed with the business. They're making every decision. There's no leadership structure. Revenue's growing, but the owner's freedom is just completely being taken away. And that's the trap. That's the trap that is consuming a lot of these guys, and a trap that we can help them get out of.
Now, I've had the pleasure of consuming some of you and your partner's content recently, and you talked about the idea of turning a restoration company from a life liability into a life asset. What does that really mean for like your average restoration owner?
Yeah, so a liability, if you think of it in terms of financials, right? It's not necessarily something that takes away, but it's more like a debt, right? It's whereas an asset is giving back to you. It's income, it's freedom, it's options. Whereas a liability, in the context of this conversation, is it's sucking your time, it's sucking your energy, it's sucking your health, your relationships, all these things. It's just taking away from those things. And business shouldn't be that way. We start out with this the air quotes American dream, right?
Mm.
But all of a sudden, you're asking yourself, is this really what the dream is all about? I'll never forget one of the more critical points in my career. I was actually working for somebody. Long story short, I was in the transportation industry. But the last gig that I had within that industry, I was waking up in the middle of the night nauseous from stress. That's when I got sleep. There were days that I was working 20 plus hours, which I think a lot of restorers could relate to.
Sure.
And that's fine in short stints, but when it's your entire job all the time, waking up in the middle of the night nauseous from stress, I didn't have time to spend with my very young family at the time. And I just had to really stop and ask myself, is this really contributing positively to my life? Now, I was making more money than I'd ever dreamed of making. And at that point, I was making more money than my father had dreamed of making, but I didn't have a life. So I had to ask myself, is this contributing positively to my life? And it wasn't. And at that point, it was time to really consider some other alternatives. So that's really where my passion comes from, I would say, is remembering that feeling of waking up in the middle of the night in the fetal position. This is no exaggeration, completely nauseous for stress, wondering at what point I was going to get up and go take care of business, vomit
Mm.
from the stress. So I remember that feeling when I'm talking to these business owners. It's just, man, knowing that I can help them, knowing that we've got the systems to do it, if they're willing to meet me halfway and put in the work.
Now, I'm sure everybody listening to this podcast has had that moment, right? Whether you own a restoration business or maybe you're just a project manager or general manager, when you have an event where the phones are ringing off the hook, right? You've got to dispatch technicians, you've got a dozen jobs going at one time, and everybody needs you, right? Do you think that's the common sign that you see when you start working with a business owner, that it's just they're too dependent on the owner because they can't even sit down and have a conversation with you for 5 minutes without being dragged away by the next problem?
Yeah, and the irony of it is they paid me big money to come down there and help them assess their problems when all I have to do is sit there and watch them work and realizing there's no time, right? Um, some other, yeah, some that's certainly a sign, right? The phone is ringing constantly and it goes to them always. That's a huge sign that The business is way too dependent on you.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing that I see often, that is a sure telltale sign, is that the leaders in their organization have no authority to do anything without approval, right?
Mm.
Um, so think of a purchase, right? If they have to go to Home Depot to pick up, which that's a whole other topic. Don't get me started on that. That's a huge pet peeve of mine, but I digress. If they have to go to Home Depot to pick up supplies for whatever reason, and it's $100, well, the owner or the owner or GM even shouldn't even having to be approving that.
No.
There should be things in place for that to get approval, and I argue that $100 purchase shouldn't even need approval. But
No.
that's a whole other story.
No.
Another thing that I look for when I'm discussing with this potential partnership is how long has it been since they took a real vacation? And do they even remember what a real vacation is like? If they can't take a real vacation, and listen, I'm not even saying a 2 week getaway. I'm saying, can you go a whole weekend and your phone not ring? If not, then that's a problem. Again, depending on the size of the business, right? There's some caveats to some of these statements, but
Sure.
by and large, if you can't take some time away to spend with the people that you say are most important to you and not be distracted, that's a telltale sign for me.
I would agree. Now, our audience here at the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast, we've got restorers, operators of all sizes, right? And I know you talk specifically about like certain growth ceilings and certain things that you should be doing at different revenue levels. That 2 to 5 million mark seems to be a big challenge for a lot of restorers, right? It's why do you think that's such a common breaking point?
Well, I always say work is easy to find, people are hard to find.
Okay.
And if you don't have an infrastructure to know what the right people are for your business, then that's going to present some problems. And they haven't, a lot of times in that $2 to $5 million range, you've been able to get by being the point guy or the
Hmm.
point lady. You've been able to be at the top of the pyramid, and you've been able to manage and deflect enough that you can still stay sane and you can still get things done. But once you get past that 3.5, you're getting into the 5 and maybe just a tick over,
Hmm.
you can't dodge, weave, and deflect enough and still grow. So that's really where the growth, what I've found, that's where the growth really starts to just slow down
Okay.
because you can't continue to bob and weave your way through this anymore because it's gotten to a point where you now need more people, and you're in that $2 to $5 million range. You're really having to start focusing on developing a leadership team.
Okay.
That's different than having a bunch of employees, project managers, or technicians out in the field doing the work and being able to manage them. You're having to start now having this other layer of leadership and management within your company. And most people that have launched on their own don't quite understand what that looks like.
Okay. Now, if I'm a restorer and I'm listening to this episode right now, what signs should I be looking for? Like that me as the owner, that I'm the bottleneck in the business.
Um, I would say that when decisions start slowing down or you're starting to see people are frustrated because things aren't moving or they can't do things on their own, um, when employees aren't able to think for themselves, and then we've started developing this culture of they've they don't even know how to think on their own because we haven't built a culture that empowers them to think on their own and make decisions.
Interesting.
If you're constantly putting out fires and all the fires are coming to you and you don't have the time to work on building the company, that's a huge sign that you're the bottleneck.
Okay.
If you can't go to dinner with your family without being interrupted,
There you go.
that's a crucial sign.
Can't take a vacation, can't go to dinner with your
Yeah.
family. Like those are really telltale signs. I'm sure there's somebody sitting in the truck right now or sitting at their desk working on an estimate and they've got this playing on YouTube. They're like, hey, that's me, that's me,
Yeah.
Toby. That's me.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
When an owner realizes that they're the bottleneck, what would you say is usually the first step towards fixing that?
Well, I mean, I think the first step is just like anything, you've got to acknowledge it, right? That's the first and foremost is you have to be in a place where your brain can accept the fact that you can no longer be everything to all people, right?
Hmm.
A lot of owners resist this because their identity is tied to being needed. It's a psychological thing.
Okay.
We have to, what I end up doing is I end up working to help transform the brain. And I'm not a brain guy, right? Right. I just can give you processes, procedures, and systems to help move you in that direction. You know, we say it all the time, WRT to CEO. We've got to make that transition from being a technician to a CEO mindset.
Okay.
I use the analogy all the time. Do you think the CEO of Walmart knows that we have somebody out sick in Bentonville, Arkansas? Well, maybe that's a bad example because Walmart is based in Bentonville, but Charlotte, North Carolina, right?
I get the idea. I get the
You get
idea
the
for
idea.
sure.
As the CEO, they don't know those things. And it's okay. In fact, it's not their job. It's okay to not know all the intimate details of every single job. What is important is that you have built the systems so that every single job is taken care of to the standards that the company has set out to maintain.
I like that. You talk a lot about systems, but you also have really done a good job of emphasizing the importance of having the right people, right? The right people, right
Oh,
seats to help facilitate your
uh,
business. I know there's again, our audience is full of restoration companies at all different revenue levels. Let's talk a little bit about like different stages and like let's say there's somebody listening, they've got a restoration company, they do like $1 to $3 million, right?
mhm.
What should that operator's leadership team structure start to look like?
At that stage, that 1 to 3, the
Mhm.
owner is still very much in the work.
Okay.
But they need to start separating um, mentally from it.
Okay.
Like I would say that's probably the first step is, and I'll tell a little story. When I had my own company and I had finally trained up my first technician to a point where I was like, okay, buddy, you got this. You can run a job, you can run the day yourself. The moment I watched, and I'll never forget watching my van drive down my road because I was still operating out of my home at that point, driving down my road and I wasn't in it was a big moment for me. Big moment. I'll never forget that. But you have to start separating mentally from the day-to-day operations as much as you can. Um, you need to have one person who owns operations.
Okay.
We have to have outlined their role and given them the decision-making authority so that they don't have to come to you constantly for approval. Now, as the Spider-Man movie says, with great power is great responsibility, right?
But for
So
sure.
we're going to give them the power, but they have to understand that they have a responsibility. If they make a decision without me, great. But if I ask about it, you better be able to back it up.
Okay.
If not, that's a whole different conversation.
Would you say that's
Um,
the first key hire an owner in that $1 to $3 million stage should make is like that general manager, somebody to oversee operations?
at 1 to 3, what we actually see is that if you have a really good project manager,
Okay.
you're probably good.
Okay.
Um, at that stage, the owner still is going to be the face of the company. The owner is the best person to do the business development and sales aspect of it.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe, maybe soon after a good PM, you've got an administrative person that can start handling some of the back office work.
Okay.
Um,
Now what?
in that 1 to 3, and obviously that's going to scale, like that's a sliding scale, right? At
Sure.
the upper end of that, you're going to need a few more key roles, most likely. Lower end of that, you can probably get by with a project manager, technician, and be good with it. I know I know one company that's operating at 2 million with a very hefty profit margin because it's just the owner and a solid lead technician. There's obviously issues with that, right?
Sure.
Doesn't have much of a life, and that's the reason we're engaged with them is because the owner has got a young son, and he's like, I just want to go pick up my son from school on Friday and not feel guilty. I
Ah,
got you, buddy. I got
uh,
you. But he's running a $2 million company, high profit margins, and arguably the best quality of work I've ever seen.
wow.
So, many good things there, but he doesn't have a life to speak
Now,
of.
now
So,
I'm sure that message resonates with a lot of our audience. What mistakes do you see owners make when they try to make that first like operational leader hire?
mm,
Like, what are they looking for? What shouldn't they be looking for in terms of finding the right person for that seat?
man, this is actually a very loaded question. Let's start off with what I see most often, and that is they're looking for a warm body. Just can you get in here and just take some of this off my plate,
Okay.
right? That's very short-sighted, right? The right way to approach this is first you got to know who you are as a person and what your company represents. That's the first thing. Then you've got to know where you're going. What are your goals for the organization? Okay. And this starts getting, I don't mean to wax philosophical here, but it's super important that we understand these fundamental elements of our business
Hmm.
because when we bring somebody in, they need to align with that. And if they don't align with that, my business coach told me when I just started my own company, I hired a business coach and she told me, Toby, anytime you see a conflict in your business, it's because there's a conflict in your values. They don't value the same thing you value, right? So I call it all the coachy BS, right? Nobody likes to talk about their values. Nobody likes to talk about their mission or their purpose. Um, they don't like to talk about that stuff. They just want to do the work. I
Sure.
get it. But if you're really going to scale, if you're really going to get to the place that the Toms of the world are
Hmm.
at, these are the things that you've got to start with. So I'll bring this full circle. When you're hiring somebody, you need to make sure that they align with you, your business, and where you're planning to go with this.
Okay.
Because if they're not aligned with that, there's going to be conflict.
Okay. So if you're listening to this, you need to know what your core values are, your purpose is, right? And then hire accordingly, right? Somebody that's in
Yes.
line, and also your vision for the business, right? What you
Yeah.
think your restoration company is not just looking like today, but it's going to look like 2, 3, 5 years down the road, right?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I'm going to add one more thing to that. A lot of times, restorers put such a high regard on the certifications and the knowledge. And please don't misunderstand me. I'm not discounting the value of that.
Hmm.
What I'm saying is we need to place more emphasis on who the people are and what they value because you can train restoration to anyone. It's hard to find good people of character.
Man, hard skills versus soft skills, right? Like the
Correct.
hard skills of being a water tech, like man, you can send somebody down to a wet house in Florida for a week and they can come back the best tech you ever had, right?
Yep.
But those soft skills, right? That's really what you have to hire for, right?
Yep.
Super
I've
important in
I've seen it
restoration.
happen. I've seen that play out so many times where they go look at the resume and say, "Oh, they got restoration. They must be good." And it's one of the worst hires they've ever made. On the flip side, I've seen so many, I can think of five right off the top of my head right now. Tom had a couple of these actually in his business where they go and hire character and they train restoration, night and day. Night and day difference.
End up being a rock star.
Oh my gosh. Unbelievable rock stars.
Okay. Us talk about like the next revenue stage, right? Like let's
Mhm.
talk about restoration companies that are somewhere in like that $3 to $6 million range. What like operational changes need to happen, and what does that leadership team potentially look like?
Yeah, so you're going at that point, you're certainly going to need to have a well-rounded leadership team, not just a group of good employees. You're going to have regular high value, not just regular meetings for the sake of having meetings, but regular high value meetings with accountability built into your culture. There's going to be scorecards, KPIs, all of these things. And a lot of these things that I'm talking about they're non-negotiables really in order for you to have a solid business. Now you can be in this $3 to $6 million range and be riding a Bronco in a rodeo, right? Like it could be the wild, wild west kind of
Sure can.
business. Um, but if you want a business that serving your life is sellable and is not a headache, then some of these things are non-negotiables. Um, I would say really, if I was to distill it all down to that, that's what it would be: is a good leadership team
Okay.
with good high value meetings. And I'm not saying every day. Like our process is 1 90-minute meeting a week that is
Okay.
like walking into the dojo and bowing on the mat, right? It's a highly respected meeting. It's part of our culture. You don't miss it unless you're sick or on vacation,
Okay.
right? It's just not missed. Everything in your business is planned around this meeting. I don't care if an adjuster can meet with you on Tuesday at 9:30. We have a 90-minute meeting that starts Tuesday at 9 a.m. The adjuster can either schedule earlier or later. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Um, I would say that if you can get to that point where those things are in place, it means that there's so many other things that are in place also. Accountability, SOPs, all of that. Um, if I'm gonna pick one thing for the sake of time, I would say that's the top tier, and there's so many deeper layers below that.
Okay. When you say like you got your leadership team there, but you want them to ultimately like have some accountability, own outcomes there, not wait for approvals there. That's got to be the thing that like you get the most pushback from the
Oh
owner.
yeah,
They want to keep their hands. They want to be the last person to make the decision, right?
yeah.
Talk a little bit about like some of the challenges that you've had, some of those tough conversations that you've had to have with some of the restoration company owners that you've worked with.
Well, a-
Don't name
all,
names, Toby. Don't
no,
name
no, no,
names. We
no.
don't want
I'm
to
not. I'm not.
get hurt anybody's
All
feelings.
all restoration business owners can relate to money, right? So
Mhm.
I put it in terms that they can understand. Do you want to be making a $20 an hour decision, or do you want to be making the $200 to $500 an hour decisions? Right? If me as the business owner, we calculate your time, and these are just rough numbers for the sake of just calculating something out. But $200 to $500, right? Let's just go $300 an hour is what we're going to calculate you as the owner. That's your bill time, right? That's what
Right.
your time is worth. Okay. If you're going to spend time looking for alternatives to a Home Depot purchase that needs to
Mhm.
be made for $50, you've all of a sudden made that $50 purchase. If you spent a half an hour on it, a $200 purchase, because half of 300 is $150 plus your 50. That's a
Mhm.
$200 purchase, right? That's not counting the time that it takes your technician to go to Home Depot. That's not including your wear and tear on your vehicle, right?
Right.
All of a sudden, that's become a $300 to $500 purchase. But if you'd put the proper accountability systems in place, your technician could have gone, made that $50 purchase, gotten back to the job. You never knew about it, and you've saved yourself $150 of your time.
That's a great way of framing it for that business owner. All right, so let's talk about the companies at that higher stage, right? I'm talking about
Yep.
companies that are doing $7 million a year in revenue. What do you think the owner's role looks like in a company of that size?
A lot different. Let's just start there. The owner should be almost completely out of operations.
Okay.
I've worked with a company in the past. I'll leave it at that. Owned multiple locations, and they were in the 10 plus range. The owner had somewhat of a life, but when he was not out doing other things, he was completely consumed almost 24/7 with his business.
Okay.
Um, he didn't have a reliable leadership team, among many other factors. But my point in saying that is you can get to 7 plus and still be involved in the day to day. but you have no life
Yeah.
and you are burnt out, stressed, all the things all at once, all the time. It's not a life. So at 7 plus, to have a business that's sellable, that contributes positively to your life, and gives you the freedom to do the things that you want to do, you've got to be almost completely out of operations.
Okay.
Your job at that point is vision, culture, capital, and key relationships. If you're still running jobs at 7 million or more, something went wrong somewhere along the journey.
Well, Toby, it sounds like you've had experiences. Some were wins. You helped companies scale massively. Some you probably just pushed back and said, hey, this is probably not a good fit because you're not going to
That's
implement
correct.
the systems that we've got in place. What do you think really separates companies that are successfully scaling versus those that like stall out because they just refuse to put those systems in place?
At the end of the day, what it comes down to is the owners don't try to install first and then hire. They hire first and allow the team to install.
Hmm.
Um, they scale when they build leaders, not followers. They empower their people to make the decisions that need to be made, and they actually make less decisions. We jokingly say, because at the end of the day, it's kind of true, but it's really a leap for these guys to really get a hold of. When you've got the right team in place, you have the least amount on your schedule. In a
Fair.
lot of ways, the guys that have scaled well, now don't get me wrong, they're busy, right? They have things to do, but their task list is minimal. It's because the tasks that they have to do are high impact, high value tasks. There's not a bunch of them. There's a few of them that are high value, um, very strategic. So it's really a hard place for these owners to get to. But when they can understand that and they realize that their team needs to be empowered to do a lot of the tasks, it frees them up. We had one customer that we worked with for a long time. He would call us up as he was scaling. He loves to travel, loves to travel. That's his thing. That's his pastime. So he would go away. He started with 2 weeks. Then he went to a month. Then one year he went a whole summer gone. He called us up when he got back. He's like, you would not believe it. When I got back, nobody needed me. And I sat down at my desk to get some things done. And there was 2 envelopes on my desk. That's it.
Wow.
He was gone a whole summer, but he had put the systems in place.
I'm sure there's somebody listening to this conversation right now that's like, that's their dream, right? They wish
Oh,
they could take their
it's
kids
everybody's
away for
dream.
the summer.
Yeah, it's every. I would argue that every restorer, every small business owner starts with that as the dream.
So working with, so I've got a digital marketing agency. We work with, 130 plus restoration companies across the country. But one of the things that I've come to realize that even no matter what stage they're at, right, 1 to 3, 5 to 7, 7 plus, a lot of these restoration companies don't do a great job of tracking. And that's just on the sales and marketing side. I imagine that probably carries over on the operational data as
Yes,
well. Is that
a
something that you
hundred
see?
percent. Oh yes, oh
Okay.
yes. These guys. We're lucky if we have a regular P&L, much less any weekly metrics. Part of our entire process is putting a weekly scorecard in place, and we look at these weekly metrics every single week. This is part of that meeting, that rhythm I was talking about, non-negotiable. Part of the meeting agenda is looking at the scorecard.
Now,
So,
would you mind? We don't need. I'm sure there's a lot of different KPIs depending on the restoration company
oh
and their
yeah,
service
yeah,
offering. But could you give us a few of those high level KPIs that you would say a
yeah,
restoration company should be tracking on a regular basis?
absolutely. I think there's 6 or 8. I forget the exact count. That we start off with every
Okay.
single customer at the end of the day. Now, some of them, wildly enough, don't have the ability to track it when we first get started. They don't even know where to pull the information from because they don't track it. So we have to get those systems installed first before we can actually start tracking. But at a minimum, what we recommend is gross revenue, right?
Okay.
Because I want to see what have we sold. Now we can start getting into semantics. Is that sold revenue? Is that invoice revenue? Lots of different ways to track revenue. But at the end of the day, we look at gross revenue, and we talk about it in terms of invoice this week, right? Then we want to look at net profit. After we pay all the bills, how much money is left over? Because that's going to tell us how much we can reinvest into the company.
Okay.
Right. I look at how many leads did we get?
Okay.
Then, based on those number of leads, how many inspections did we do? Then, based on the number of inspections, how many jobs did we close?
Okay.
Now, in between each of those numbers is a ratio, and that tells a story, right? How many jobs or how many leads came in to how many inspections performed. That tells us how well our whoever's answering the phone is doing at getting our people on site. It also can tell us the quality of the leads that we have coming in.
Got it.
Right. Okay. Then if you take the ratio between how many inspections performed versus how many jobs closed, we can start tracking how well our project managers are doing at closing.
Okay.
But we can also, within that number, dive into maybe our admin or whoever's answering the phone is not doing a good job of quantifying the job first, right? So there's some ratios built into each one of these metrics that we look at. There's some other things that we look at. Accounts receivables is a big thing. For those that know Clark and Restoration Advisors, one of our kind of key things that we're known for is our customer onboarding process and how to finish a job and get paid within your terms in full. And that's a whole other conversation that we can get into.
We might bring you back for a whole other conversation about that, right?
I'd love to. I'd love to. Be very happy to. So stay tuned for those listening.
There you go. Tell them, Toby.
But accounts receivables, your aging, if you have the ability to look at your job cost versus what you estimated. And then let's see. One that we like to look at is total revenue divided by the total number of employees. And I say tongue in cheek, CEO to janitor, everybody in between, because that gives you an operational efficiency metric. And that kind of tells us how well we're doing as an organization. So,
I was going to ask you, what are those? I guess it's, would you say revenue to employee ratio? Is that like one of the operational metrics that tells you whether or not a restoration company is running efficiently?
Yes. Yeah. We look at that one pretty heavily. We track it every week for every single customer that we work with. And it just tells us whether we're invoicing and performing the amount of work necessary to support the number of employees that we have.
Okay.
And if it's low, typically we'll start to ask a lot of questions. Do we have good quality work coming in? We may need to adjust the type of work that we're chasing. Do we have too many people? Or is it just a matter of we just don't have the volume to support the people that we have on deck?
Okay.
So there's lots of it's basically just a barometer test. It doesn't signify any one problem, but it tells us, hey, we're trending downwards. We need to really go back and analyze why we're trending downwards. So it's a barometer test more than anything.
If somebody just wanted to scribble on their notepad right now, hey, this is what we did in top line revenue, this is how many employees I have, and they got to that number, what would you say is, okay, that's looking good, and what would you say is, hey, that's a red flag? Is there a certain number, or is it going to vary depending on what part of the country you're in?
Well, there's some variance based on geographic location, but at the end of the day, a healthy restoration business we found is no less than 2,500 to 3,000. Okay. Now, that's on the low end. If we see anybody in that range, we're asking questions, right? And we have some customers that are in that range, and that's why we're working with them. Okay. You get a very, very healthy company, you could see upwards of $6,000 to $8,000 per employee, but that's on the high end.
$6,000 to $8,000 a week coming in per employee.
Employee.
Okay. All right.
Now that's on the very high end. That's not achieved easily or often. but we have seen the number.
But if that number is 2,500 or less that you're bringing in per employee, that's a red flag to you.
Oh, huge red flag. Yeah,
Okay.
really, where we are aiming to get 80 to 90% of our customers is around the $4,500 per week per employee. And
That's
again,
a
that's including everyone.
that's a small mitt job.
Right.
There you
That's
go.
a very small mint job. Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
what other financial numbers should every restoration company owner like know at all times?
Cash on hand.
Okay.
You need to have we target a minimum of 3 months of operating capital in the bank for a rainy day. That's what we target. Ideally, you want to be around 6 months.
I feel like the rainy day, there should be a joke in there somewhere because if it's really rainy, then you're going to be making more money, right?
We could be
So
making more money.
there you go.
Touche, sir. Touche.
There you go.
One other thing that I would add to that is if you can get to a point where you're job costing every single job and you can do a profit and loss statement on every job, you're probably winning the game.
Okay.
So for those that aren't doing it, I would ask how we could get there.
I like it. You said one of the simplest but most powerful things a company can implement is like the consistent leadership meeting, right? What can you walk us through really quickly? Because I really
Yeah.
appreciate you giving us so much time. What is the cadence? What is that? What is the outline? What's the structure of those leadership team meetings?
Yeah, it's 60 to 90 minutes.
Okay.
Smaller company, 60 minutes is fine. If you're in that upper 3 to 5 range and beyond, it's probably 90 minutes is probably good. Same time, same day,
Okay.
every week, non-negotiable. Like I said, the dojo mindset, right? Like when you bow on the mat, like it's utmost respect for the mat. Um, you review the KPIs. We look at surface problems that have come up, but those, and that's the thing with our approach is everything is proactive, right? We live in a reactive industry,
Hmm.
reactive world, but this is a business. There are things that we have to react to, but our business isn't one of them. Same goes for this meeting. When we come to the meeting, the agenda is already set. Everybody should be logging problems or challenges that they had in the business. Now, this is different than a WIP meeting, a work in progress meeting. This is not that. This is business. This is the projects needed to be complete to get us to our goal,
Okay.
right? Very different than a work in progress meeting.
You don't want to be spending that 90 minutes digging into a specific like job, right? A
Right.
specific challenge on that job.
Unless that job has presented a larger cultural type of issue
Okay.
that needs to be, you see you see the
Yeah, I
difference I'm
do.
making there?
I do. I do.
So this meeting is about doing the things necessary inside the business to get us to our goal.
Okay. I like
So
that.
it's doing quarterly projects, rocks as in the EOS world, it's called rocks.
There you go.
So figuring out who's accountable for those quarterly projects and who's carrying that thing forward and saying, hey, are you good? Are you not good? Or is there some kind of issue that we need to log and discuss, right? You get to the end and you have all your issues lined out and you just knock them down. If you get one solved today, great. If you get 10 solved today, fantastic. But if you only got one of the 20 solved, it's okay. We'll carry the rest of them on to next week and we'll discuss them next week.
Toby, this is an awesome conversation. You are delivering so much value to the audience. I wanted to spend some time talking about, SOPs and documenting certain things in the business and then like leadership development. But if you're okay, I'd like to bring you back for another episode to go through those things.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to. I'd be honored.
Okay, but before we again, I hope you guys are taking notes. I hope you guys are listening because the systems and things that Toby talks about, those are things that we do in my digital marketing agency. There are things that the Fortune 500 companies of the world. These are the kind of systems and meeting cadences and things like that they have in place. Toby, I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about restoration advisors and kind of what services that you guys offer in coaching restoration restoration companies? Because I am sure that there is some owner, like I said, sitting there working on an estimate. They've got us up on YouTube, or maybe they're driving in the truck, headed to an on-site visit to argue with another damn insurance adjuster.
Yep.
Like they know that they need to make these changes in their business in order for them to scale, but they don't really know where to start. They really could use a third party coming in and helping them to put these systems and stuff in place.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about what you guys do at Restoration Advisors.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. We say often we're not sales guys, we're ops guys. So we don't do a very good job of talking about ourselves. um, but the service that we offer is just that. It's helping restoration business owners transform their business into a life asset. We do that through leadership, systems, and structure. We have a three-phase program that we start with phase one. It's structure. You got to have structure before you can build the systems, and before you can before you can scale, you've got to have the structure and the systems in place. So it's structure, systems, and scale,
Okay.
right? And scale can be whatever you want it to be. It can be get you to that $2 million mark that you haven't been able to hit. It can get you to the 7 million, 12 million. It can be whatever you define it to be. And that's the beauty of our service is we don't come to you with business in a box. We say, what do you want out of this?
Okay.
And we're going to help you reverse engineer the pathway to get there. Now, there's some basics that I don't want to say, but basics. There's some fundamentals that we'll play with. But at the end of the day, each business is as different as the owner running it. We understand that fact, and we're going to help you figure out what it is that you want out of this business to contribute to your life and the pathway to get there. We do that. There's two ways. We keep things super simple. We have an online community and platform where we have a whole bunch of education content that a lot of this stuff is DIY. You can consume the information, you can implement kind of on your own, and you can have a call with us occasionally. We also do group coaching, live events within that community platform for a very affordable rate.
Okay.
Then you can work with me one-on-one. We start with a 2-day on-site where we do a complete diagnosis of your business. We kind of throw your business up in the air, let the pieces scatter, and we pull out the pieces that need to stay to help get you to where you want to go. Very immersive. That's one of our core values is being immersive. And after that 2-day on-site, it's then a monthly engagement where we have calls on the regular one-to-one. It's not in a group setting.
Okay.
It's one-to-one, and we become somewhat of a fractional COO in a lot of ways.
Okay.
So
it sounds like you've got different programs for different size restoration companies, right? Because some of the companies that maybe aren't quite at the multiple seven figures, while they'd love to have you guys come out for on sites and do that one-on-one, so they just might not have the bandwidth to be able to afford that kind of investment right now. Tell the audience, how could they reach out to you if they're interested in finding out more about any of the programs that you guys offer?
The best thing to do is just go to the website, restorationadvisors.com.
Okay.
Just go there. There's lots of information. Our blog is there. We put out a weekly blog. It's value driven, no pitch. Just get information that's good that you can implement right away. If somebody's unsure or they want to get to know us a little bit, we host an annual business retreat in Montana every year. This year it's June 23rd and 24th, I believe. It's that week. I'll have to double check the dates. But very affordable. And it's super immersive. There's no vendors, there's no pitches, there's no lectures. We actually poll all the attendees before they come to see what the pain points are in their business. That goes on the screen, and it's a collaborative experience where everybody's sharing together.
Man,
I'm there, Clark is there. We're there to facilitate and to drop nuggets based on the conversations we have with other restorers, but we're not there to teach. We're there to facilitate conversations with other restorers.
Man, how big of a group do you guys usually have out in Montana?
We keep it small.
Okay.
We keep it small on purpose. We are generally in the 10 to 15 range.
Okay.
It's a small, very intimate group. But the differentiation between us, this event, and any other event is that we actually find the pain points in your business and we help you address those with peer collaboration.
I like that. I like that a lot. Before we let you go, Toby, I need you to commit to me and to the audience that we're going to get you back here in the next week or two, because I want to have the conversations about SOPs and documentation, and also about like leadership development and how to delegate some of those responsibilities to that new project manager or GM that you put in place there. Can you make that commitment to the Restoration Pros Unplugged audience that you'll be back, Toby?
You can twist my arm. You can count on it.
Love to hear it, man. I really appreciate you jumping on, guys. If you're interested in finding out more about the event that they're doing in Montana and also the service offering that they have over at Restoration Advisors, you could visit their website. If you're driving right now, don't worry. We'll put a link to it in the description, the podcast description, and the show notes so that you guys can reach out to Toby. Toby, again, thank you for bringing so much value to this episode. And we're looking forward to have you back on sooner rather than later.
I am deeply honored and humbled, Clinton. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. And to our audience, I hope you liked the conversation. We got massive value out of the conversation with Toby today. If you like what you heard, make sure you guys like, subscribe, find us on social media. We're going to be launching a brand new Restoration Pros Unplugged website here in the next coming weeks. So be on the lookout for that. Again, thank you, Toby. Thank you, audience. Hope you guys stuck around and got a lot of value. We'll see you guys next time.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast. If you like what you heard today, be sure to subscribe, share, and also leave us a 5-star review. We'll be back with more interviews and discussions with restoration industry leaders really soon. In the meantime, if you're a restoration company looking to add more high-value water jobs, you can reach me and my team at waterrestorationmarketing.net. Again, that's waterrestorationmarketing.net. I look forward to hearing from you soon.